Looks like an internal phone, for paging doctors or patients, I guess. I don't have anyone to call. The sign says I'm not allowed back there. Locked. Whatever's back there, I can't get to it. Looks like a fuse box. Judging by the flickering lights, it must be broken. You need a key to open it. Some kind of motivational poster. I'm not stealing stuff from the hospital. It says that this floor is undergoing renovations. That explains a lot. I'm not stealing stuff from the hospital. Some small keys. One of them is labeled FB. I assume that means fuse box. I don't think I need any of these keys. Just a small transistor radio. I don't think so. It's the security guard for the hospital. What's with the lights?
Hey, old buildings, you know? Always got problems. If the plumbing ain't broken, the lights are on the blink. It's giving me a headache, let me tell you.
Did you have contact with Lauren Blackwell while she was here?
Nope. Doesn't ring a bell. She was in temporary care?
No, she was in long-term.
That's a whole different floor. This is the floor for temp patients.
I see. So what exactly happens here on the temporary ward?
It's just that. Temporary. Most insurance plans only cover a 2-week stay, so this floor is designed for a high turnover rate. That's why the doctor's offices are usually down here. They need to be on hand when new patients arrive.
I'm here to see Dr. Quentin.
Uh-huh. Is he expecting you?
I've got this letter right here.
Okay, looks legit. Go right in. His name's on the door, you can't miss it.
Francisco Gonzalez, you might recognize from Shiva. He did the voice of the detective in Shiva, and now he plays another sort of law enforcement guy. He plays the hospital rent-a-cop. And he was very patient. Francisco was very, very patient with me because I kind of waited until like the very, very end to send in the script because I wanted to kind of make sure I had everything in place in the script Bible. And of course, as being disorganized, I had left about 6 or 7 lines out of it, and I would email him in a panic and be like, "Hey, here are the lines," and so he would dutifully send them back like by the next day. He'd re-record, and he did a great job. He's easy to work with. He does great work, and he writes great games too. He has a series of games called Ben Jordan, Paranormal Investigator. He goes under the name Grundislav Games. He calls himself Grundislav on the internet. I think he's up to number 6 or 5 or 7 in the series. He's so prolific, it's very hard to keep track. So Ben Jordan, Francisco Gonzalez, Grundislav Games. Check him out.
Thanks.
Come in.
Dr. Quentin?
Yes?
I'm Rosangela Blackwell.
Oh, hello. Come in.
Dr. Quentin, who I now should call Dr. Backstory or Dr. Exposition. Again, another what was I thinking and apology moment. Rosa has a very complicated backstory. She's got her aunt and grandmother and all that stuff, and that needed to be related to the player in some way. And I did that through this doctor and the letters later. I'll talk about those letters later. And I think this was a really bad way of handling it. The one thing I've learned over 5 years of making these games is that info dumps, especially big info dumps like this, are bad. Number one, they're boring, especially in an adventure game like this, because the characters don't move or do anything. So having all that information being thrown at you when there's nothing interesting to capture your attention, it's just bad design. And also, so much information is being thrown at you during this very boring thing, so you're not processing it very well, and you miss it all. So if I could redo things, if I could be George Lucas, which I'm not going to do, I would have figured out a way to parcel all this information out a little better over the course of the game, so the player could have processed it better, which I didn't do 5 years ago when I made this game. I have learned since then. I make a point of not doing this now when I make games. Again, my first game, I apologize.
You got my letter, I trust.
Yes, I did.
Good, good. My condolences on the loss of your mother.
You might recognize the voice of the doctor as the same guy who did the voice of Rabbi Zelig in the Shiva. And the guy behind the voice, his name is Joe Rodriguez, and I know him from my improv group. And Joe is such a funny guy. Man, this guy, he's so funny. I can't even explain how. He's just really funny. But he's got this great baritone, as you can hear. And I wanted the doctor to have this kind of very calm, maybe even slightly clinical but deep voice, and I knew Joe would be perfect. And so he lives kind of far away from me, very far. He lives in Connecticut. I live in New York, and so I knew he'd be perfect. But I know he actually has professional equipment in his house, so he could do all the voices from his house. And he is such a good actor, I didn't have to worry about having to constantly be on hand to direct him. So I was willing to kind of let him do his own thing. And if I really wanted something to change, I would tell him. But I never had to ask him to change anything because everything was perfect. Joe could nail it every single time without any direction. So yay, Joe! Joe is awesome. And if Joe does not make it in the world of voice actoring, then that's a crime. That's a big crime. So best of luck, Joe.
You mean my aunt?
Ah, quite right, quite right.
So you wanted to talk to me about something?
Yes, I did. But before we go into that, how are you holding up?
I'm fine.
That's good to hear. You received the ashes?
Yes, I scattered them this morning.
I imagine you must miss her.
Why does it matter?
There I go again, asking so many questions. You're not a patient. You came at my request.
Right. Auntie was the patient.
And you made a point of visiting her for many years. If you'll indulge me one more time, could I ask you why?
She was the only family I had. I guess I felt an obligation like I had to.
And now that you don't have to?
Rosa is not sappy about her family. She's very realistic. She kind of pushes those feelings away. And a lot of the beta testers noted the fact. They said, hey, Rosa is such a bitch about her aunt. I mean, holy crap, she's just so mean. And this was totally done on purpose. She doesn't always necessarily think what she says. The doctor is trying to invade her personal space, and she kind of retaliates by saying this really nasty stuff, and she knows it's nasty, and she's really just trying to get a reaction out of him. It's just this very neurotic thing that she's doing. Because Rosa does care. She visited her aunt every week. You'll see later on she asks Joey many questions about her aunt. She wants to know about her. She wants to know about her family. But up until now, it was something that was always denied to her. So she was always very realistic and doesn't like to dwell on those feelings because nothing would ever come of them. So she kind of just shoved it away and pretended that it didn't bother her. So that's really the essence of who Rosa is at this moment in time. And if she does act like a bit of an ice queen, that's totally on purpose.
What do you want me to say? Auntie's dead. Life goes on.
So you'll just keep living, is that it?
Yes.
Keep writing your little book reviews in the paper, right?
You know about those?
It's hardly a secret. A number of the staff have read them, yes.
I didn't think a West Village paper would interest anyone up here.
I have to be honest, Miss Blackwell. The staff read them because they were more interested in you.
That's really creepy, Dr. Quinton.
Their intentions were purely benign, I assure you. It was your aunt they were primarily interested in. They wanted to know more about her family, and you proved to be, shall we say, less than eager to comply.
That's their problem.
Indeed. It was your choice to make. Your aunt was an interesting case. And now that she's gone, I was hoping you'd be more forthcoming with me. Just an informal chat. We can discuss her condition, and yours too, of course.
The music here, if you pay attention, is a very subtle ticking noise. And I was told later on that it's a cool noise, but it was also a reference to the original, a very subtle reference to the original Bestowers of Eternity, where you had to do a really, really awful puzzle, and for that I'm sorry, involving a stopwatch, with an alarm clock. You had to. I'm going to give away the puzzle here because it was so bad that it's not giving anything away. Where you had to lie down on the doctor's couch and he hypnotized you, and he would leave the room. And in order to wake up while the doctor was still out, you'd have to set your stopwatch to wake you up while the doctor was out. It was a really horrible puzzle, and I did not include that in this game, not by a long shot. It was so awful. I'm sorry about that. I really am sorry about that original horrible puzzle. I like to pretend the original Bestowers never existed. I have to be totally honest. A lot of people tell me that it was the best thing I did, and God, I hope not. I really hope not. I look at that now and I just wince. I hope I managed to redeem myself with the Blackwell legacy. That's another reason why I changed the title. I just don't want to be associated with Bestowers of Eternity anymore. But anyway, yeah, the music, clock ticking reference. Yeah.
You never could find out what was wrong with her, huh?
No, we didn't. But she still remains a fascinating case.
Fascinating. I don't understand.
Forgive me. I speak from a purely professional perspective. I didn't know your aunt personally.
Neither did I, but fascinating?
It might come as a surprise to you, but yes.
But she was practically catatonic. All she did was lie there for 20 years. She'd sometimes twitch or mumble something incoherent, but I wouldn't call that fascinating.
Well, as you know, she wasn't exactly catatonic. We kept her sedated.
Right. She had outbursts.
Yes, and we had to sedate her heavily to keep her calm, especially in preparation for your visits.
What are you trying to say?
Miss Blackwell, we are not a nursing home. We're not content to merely keep a patient comfortable. We are, after all, in the healing profession. We were trying to heal your aunt, and to do that, we had to speak to her.
Wait, you spoke to Auntie?
We tried to.
Did she answer back?
After a fashion, yes.
If Auntie spoke, why wasn't I told?
Miss Blackwell, do you remember what brought your aunt here in the first place? Her screaming, her hitting herself?
I was only 5 years old at the time, but I kind of remember.
In order to prevent her from doing harm to herself or to others, we were forced to sedate her. When we limited her medication, she simply reverted to her former state. Her natural state, I'm sorry to add.
What did Auntie say?
Nothing that made any sense. But one thing was clear. She was in great pain.
Pain? What kind of pain?
It's difficult to say, but it was immense.
How immense?
When we reduced her medication, the transformation was dramatic. Her eyes flew open, she thrashed, her screams. Well, we had to gag her eventually.
My God.
I know.
Did she still feel it when she was sedated?
We don't know. There's no way of knowing.
25 years.
I know.
Poor Auntie. Wait, what do you mean by my condition?
Hereditary dementia is my specialty, Miss Blackwell. And in my opinion, there is significant cause for concern.
Sorry, did you say hereditary?
Yes, 2 generations. Your aunt and your grandmother before her.
My grandmother?
Yes, Patricia, I think her name was, right?
I never knew my grandmother. Auntie Lauren was it. There was nobody else. She couldn't exactly provide me with a family history.
Oh, I see. I had no idea.
Well, maybe you should have. Did anyone else come in to visit her besides me?
No, you are correct. I should have read the family history more carefully. I do apologize. I just assumed. Well, never mind. It doesn't change the fact that you should be concerned as well.
Go on.
Patricia Blackwell suffered her mental collapse at the age of 55. Lauren Blackwell underwent hers at the age of 40.
What are you saying? That the same thing is going to happen to me?
No. I'm saying that there is significant cause for concern.
So, I had a grandmother.
Apparently so.
How do you know about her?
It was in your aunt's case history when she was brought to us. Patricia Blackwell's symptoms were the same, word for word. Patricia's case was severe, and she was young, but it was chalked up to being an ordinary case of dementia. Until
it struck her daughter.
Until 20 years later, when it struck her daughter, yes.
It seems impossible.
Perhaps it's genetic, but we've detected no abnormality.
So what should I do?
Right now, nothing. This type of thing is unprecedented. There is no procedure to go through, no medication I can give you. I just want you to be aware, is all. And come talk to me if, well, there's any concern.
You couldn't find any other link between the two cases?
None, aside from the family connection. And a name.
A name? What name?
The documentation we had on your grandmother is minimal. But there was one interesting item noted. During her more lucid moments, she uttered the name Joey. Your aunt, too, would cry out that name on occasion.
Joey?
Yes.
Who's Joey?
We've been wondering the same thing for 25 years.
Is there anything else you need to tell me before I go?
Your aunt had some personal effects in storage. As the next of kin, you're the beneficiary. It's just a folder, some documents and so on. It's being sent to your address via messenger.
Oh, well, thanks for that.
It's no problem at all. Goodbye, Miss Blackwell. My schedule is fairly open now, so feel free to drop in anytime. I'm always happy to discuss my favorite patient.
Sure. Thanks.
Uh-huh.
I'm not knocking on some stranger's door.
Come in. Hello, Rosa. Come in, come in. Don't mind the pooch, he's harmless.
I often make a big thing about how I'm more professional with VO recording now, because I used to have this headset mic that I just gave the actors, but now I have a Blue Yeti USB mic, and it's all professional, and the sound quality is so much better, and the actors can stand up and project, and I'm all professional and stuff with my VO recording. But when Rebecca was recording Rosa, there was this one session where the Occupy Wall Street folks decided to march past my window. And normally my apartment's pretty quiet, but not that day. So occasionally, if you are wearing headphones and have the volume up really high, you might be able to hear while Rosa's talking the sound of sirens or bullhorns or things like that. So, you know, I'm not as professional as I'd like to be sometimes.
All right, but this is the last one. Go get it.
I mentioned earlier that I looked after a dog, my friend's dog, for a week, and I took the dog to Washington Square Park. That dog was a Boston Terrier, and that dog's name was Cooper, and then the owner's name was Sarah. And I really based Nishanti's relationship with Moti, which means pearl in Hindi, by the way, I based that relationship on Sarah's relationship with Cooper. And I love Boston Terriers. Ever since I looked after Cooper, I just become obsessed with these little squishy-nosed guys. And everything, all the little tricks that Moti does here, Cooper does the exact same thing. The whole go-get-it thing, Sarah did the exact same thing. She'd hold out the treat, the dog would beg, and she'd say, go get it! And the dog would just snap the treat right up. So I totally based that on Cooper. And, people and their dogs. I happen to be allergic, so I cannot actually own a dog permanently. But that's all right. Allergies won't stop me from putting a dog in a game. So I can live vicariously through my games and have a dog that way. Not quite like the real thing, but it's the closest I'm ever going to get.
That's Nishanti's dog. Hey, boy! Hi, dog?
His name is Moti.
Right. Moti. See ya. That's Nishanti Sharma, my next-door neighbor, apparently. This is, a lovely place.
Thank you. Not the biggest place, but fine for Moti and me.
Thanks again for helping me out earlier. I'd probably be sleeping in a hotel tonight if it weren't for you.
Oh, didn't you hear? The strike's over.
Really?
It only lasted a few hours according to the report on the radio.
I suppose that's irony.
I suppose so.
I think this line might have been a little too subtle. There was a bit of subtext there that I'm not sure if people got or not. But basically, if it wasn't for the strike, Nishanti and Rosa would never have met. And so when Rosa gets all in a huff about the strike being over so soon, Nishanti's a tiny little bit insulted, even though it's... she knows it's totally unintentional. It was totally an innocent thing to say, but she's a little bit insulted. And it's extremely subtle, and I don't know if anyone picked up on it or not, but that's what this commentary is for. So, lucky you.
So, you play the flute, huh?
Yes, I play the flute. It's called a bansuri. What about you? Do you play an instrument?
Me? No, I can hardly play the kazoo.
Let's see. You strike me as being creatively inclined. Are you a painter? A writer?
Well, I'm trying to be a writer.
I knew it.
A problem with a lot of Nishanti's lines here is that it's just straight information giving without a lot of character. And when Ruth read the lines, we found it very difficult to give it something. And so we kind of talked about ways to give each line some subtext. And I'm giving this information to you in advance, so you'll be ready. They're about to talk about the newspaper that Rosa works for. And I told Ruth, I said, hey, Ruth, the character, Nishanti, she's going to say, oh, I've never actually read it, but maybe I will. I said to Ruth, I said, hey, you know what? You actually have read these newspapers, and you use them to house train your dog. So you feel guilty about it. And so that's how she read the line. And, it's not something that anyone would get. There's no way you would get that. But you'll definitely notice that there's a little bit more character to the line than there would have been otherwise. So it was a little trick that we did to make the lines sound a little more interesting.
Anything published?
Nothing really, aside from book reviews in the Village Eye.
Village Eye? You mean that little paper they sell at the stand?
You've read it?
I've seen it around, but I've never actually read it. Perhaps I will the next time I see it.
That dog is adorable.
Moti? He's spoiled rotten, but he's good company. He's taken quite a shine to you, that's for sure.
Huh, yeah. Usually I'm not good with animals.
You never had a childhood pet?
A pet? No, I had a teddy bear.
Well, you probably had the right idea. Moti's a little thing, but you wouldn't know it from the amount he eats.
There's a game called The Longest Journey, which is critically acclaimed, but it's a great game. You should all play it. But one common complaint, and a complaint I have, is that you could spend hours talking to the peripheral characters. And it's not so much that there's a lot of dialogue, nothing wrong with a lot of dialogue, but it's just that the dialogue itself, like you could spend an hour talking to the main character whose name is April. You could spend an hour talking to April's landlady, learn the landlady's life story. And you'd never see the landlady again. None of that information moves the story along. And I found myself doing the same thing with Nishanti here. It was very tempting to delve into Nishanti's life story and learn everything about her. And I held myself back, but what I decided to do instead, to kind of justify long dialogues with Nishanti, because I think she's a cool character, was to spin everything you ask Nishanti into learning something about Rosangela. You'll see in this dialogue how you're talking about Nishanti's pet, and then Nishanti asks Rosa a question back. Hey, did you have a pet? And so you learn that Rosangela never had a pet. She grew up with a teddy bear. So in learning about Nishanti, it actually moves the story along a bit because you learn more about Rosa, the character you're playing. So that was sort of my wacky, crazy plan when writing these dialogues.
He's very active, it seems.
Yes, that probably explains it. See that box of biscuits? I buy a new one every 2 days. Moti doesn't have a stomach. He has a black hole that sucks in food. Feel free to give him one if you like.
You have a very nice apartment.
Thank you. A bit small, but that's New York for you.
You seem very friendly with the people in this building.
Well, I didn't grow up here. I didn't realize it was taboo to chat with neighbors.
Well, it's not taboo exactly, it's just...
Oh, I know, just one of those unspoken things. I've found that most people are pretty friendly, though, once you take the first step. People have their defenses up most of the time. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. Why do you play the flute in the park?
It's a place to go, I suppose. I was walking there one day and I had the bansuri with me, so I started playing. Next thing I knew, I had a bunch of people around me. So I go there as often as I can now. It gets me out of this stuffy apartment, and I admit I like the attention. Plus, Moti loves the dog run there. Well, he did until they closed it down.
Why did they close down the dog run? It seemed okay to me.
Nobody really knows. It started about a week ago. Dogs started howling, running around like maniacs, acting strange. Some even hurled themselves at the fence door trying to get out. They say it's some kind of high-frequency wave that's caused by electric cables or something. Some high-pitched sound that the dogs can hear, but we can't. But I know better.
You know better.
Definitely. I noticed these things. I could tell that things weren't quite right. Something in the air. It's not a high-pitched noise. That would only cause a dog pain. This was more than pain. The dogs were scared.
What was there to be scared of?
I have no idea, but I know what I sensed, just like you did.
Me?
You sensed it. Don't think I didn't notice.
I didn't sense anything.
Well, perhaps. Maybe I'm just spouting nonsense.
Could I try feeding the dog?
Sure, here, take one. I have plenty. Go ahead and feed him. He's always hungry.
Well, I'd better go.
Take care, Rosa. Come back whenever you'd like.
These dog biscuits are really mushy. Hey, boy. What do I do now?
Just say, go get it. He'll do the rest.
Go get it. See ya.
You know I spoil you. Go get it.
I mentioned earlier that I looked after a dog, my friend's dog, for a week, and I took the dog to Washington Square Park. That dog was a Boston Terrier, and that dog's name was Cooper, and then the owner's name was Sarah. And I really based Nishanti's relationship with Moti, which means pearl in Hindi, by the way, I based that relationship on Sarah's relationship with Cooper. And I love Boston Terriers. Ever since I looked after Cooper, I just become obsessed with these little squishy-nosed guys. And everything, all the little tricks that Moti does here, Cooper does the exact same thing. The whole go-get-it thing, Sarah did the exact same thing. She'd hold out the treat, the dog would beg, and she'd say, go get it! And the dog would just snap the treat right up. So I totally based that on Cooper. And, people and their dogs. I happen to be allergic, so I cannot actually own a dog permanently. But that's all right. Allergies won't stop me from putting a dog in a game. So I can live vicariously through my games and have a dog that way. Not quite like the real thing, but it's the closest I'm ever going to get.
I am just feeling so uninspired today. Maybe tomorrow I'll feel up to it. But today, it's just not happening. I'm not ready for bed. Apparently, this envelope had no trouble entering the building. Go figure. Looks like it's from Bellevue.
I guess I could talk a little bit more about the creation of this room. I mentioned earlier how Tom Scarry drew the room, which isn't entirely true. Chris Fimo actually drew a lot of it as well. Tom Scarry drew the basic outline. He did the walls, the kitchen, the table, the shelf, the computer desk, and all that. And then Chris Fimo came along, and after Tom Scarry became too busy to finish, Chris Fimo added so many extra details. He kind of took what he knew about Rosa. He created that bulletin board for her newspaper clippings. He put the teddy bear up there, which is a reference to one of my earlier games. I kind of wanted that there. He added the bedroom behind the door. He added the plants, which I totally wasn't expecting. I never thought of Rosa as a plant girl. So I included a message saying they were fake. That's more of a Rosa thing. He added all those books. He added the notebook there. He added the couch and the table. The end table, so I had to redo all the walkable areas. So yeah, thanks, Chris. But he really helped make the room come alive. So good job, man. When I created the original freeware Bestowers of Eternity in 2002, was it 2003? Gosh, it was a while ago. Anyway, people told me that the letters that Rosa reads was their favorite part of the game. Actually, it seemed to be the thing that made the game. I wonder if I didn't put those letters in there, if people would have liked it so much. But I hope that it's just as effective in Blackwell Legacy, even though I kind of moved the focus away from Rosa and her family to the case that Rosa's working on, if only because the backstory is now so much bigger and so much better that it's going to take a while to get to it. So I kind of wanted to give you a little taste of the backstory now, and then in the future you'll see more. So hopefully you're not kept in total suspense, but in the meantime, this is a bit of Rosangela Blackwell backstory that you get for now. I'm afraid this is another what was I thinking and I'm sorry moment. I don't know why I thought making the player read through 25 pages of old letters was a good idea, but apparently I did, and I can only apologize for that. This was horrible design, and I'm being really overly critical with myself. But, I was 5 years ago. It doesn't seem like that huge amount of time, but I feel like I've learned a lot since then, because I look at this now and I'm like, what? Why did I do that? And I thought about editing these letters down. But in the end, I kept them because I do like them. I think that the story they tell is quite compelling. And if you go on to play the next game in the series, a lot of the things you learn in these letters come to play there. So I kept them. But if I, again, could do this all over, I would have done it a lot differently. You'll notice here that it's signed Jack and not Jacko. This was sort of my little way of showing that Jack was growing up. This was his turning point. He's no longer Jacko, he's now Jack. This has changed his life. He's a totally different person, blah, blah, blah. It's a subtle thing, but hopefully it got through to some people.
There are some pictures stuck to the back of this letter. It's just a telephone. Hello?
Rosangelina, hi.
Hi, Bob.
Thanks so much for submitting your last review on time. For once.
Yeah.
I've got a little assignment for you today.
Assignment?
Human interest, Blackwell. Suicide. College girl named Joanne Sherman.
That's awful, but...
You know the Brittany house, the NYU dorm?
Yes, but...
Speak to some people on her floor. Get a word in with the roommate.
Listen.
Speak to the RA too, and hey, see if you can score a picture of the girl.
But I don't do that stuff. I write book reviews.
Versatility. Time to get out of your comfort zone. Jeremy's over at City Hall covering that strike, so you are it. Get cracking.
I have a blog, like most people do these days. You can find it linked off of the Wadjada Games website. And there was an entry I wrote about a year and a half ago where I talked about how I learned not to write such lengthy dialogues. And I used Blackwell Legacy as an example of when I wrote really lengthy dialogues. And I decided to take one of the dialogues from Blackwell Legacy, transcribe it, and rewrite it. I said, this is how I would write it now. And I used this conversation between Rosa and her boss as the example. And the original conversation was about like 45 lines or something like that. It was really long. And it was even especially more boring because you don't see the other character. The other character's on the phone. And then on the blog, I edited it down to like maybe 16 lines instead. And I said, well, you know, this is how I would do this if I was redoing the game. And since I am redoing the game, I decided, well, why not use that revamped dialogue? So I did. So this is the one place I really edited heavily. There's other parts of the game where I cut lines, but this is the only place where I edited them. And I think it's a lot tighter and cleaner as a result.
I hate him so much. Is freelancing for that stupid paper even worth it? Well, I guess it keeps me writing, but oh, whatever. I'll just go over there and get it done. It's not like I don't have enough death in my life right now. Maybe this isn't a bad thing. It's like being a real reporter, sort of. My old notepad should come in handy for this.
All right, new option on the menu. Yeah, you just got the notebook. One of the things people really seem to like about the Shiva, and they kind of praised me for being original, was the notebook, was the notes interface, the clues interface, how you'd use clues as inventory, and they praised how awesome and original that was. I want to deny this, because I feel that credit should be given to Discworld Noir. The third game in the Discworld series, which is a beautiful noir adventure, and it actually inspired me to create mystery adventure games. And the Discworld Noir had clues as inventory. They did it first, not me. So I want to give those guys credit. So just all that credit you're giving to me, give it to Discworld Noir. They deserve it.
That's definitely Auntie Lauren. She's looking at something off camera. I wonder what it was. I assume that's my mother. She sort of looks like me, I guess. Other than that, she's a total stranger. Is that my dad? He looks so young. I always pictured my dad as being older. I don't want to ruin the picture. All I know about Joanne is that she was an NYU student who killed herself. My boss asked me to find a photograph of Joanne to put it in the paper. I don't see what one has to do with the other.